Magic 87.6 morning, Andrew on the radio, and with us is Matthew Dickerson. And in preparation for this impending tech chat that we did, unlike last week, Matt, because we're filming here, I actually shaved this week.
That's thrown out the whole concept, Andrew. The idea is you can be on radio, it doesn't matter how you look. And now this whole self-isolation thing is throwing so many things out of norm.
I know, right? I know. Because, I haven't shaved in 3 weeks because I don't care. I don't have to see any people. My wife knows what I look like. I don't have to impress her. I did that 17 years ago. So it's all good. Look, there's less hair on my face today. So I still look like Brutus from Popeye, though.
That's a bit scary.
I look like. Yeah, I know. That's all right. We'll post it up on the Magic Facebook page as well as soon as we get the video as well, so you can check it all out. Last week's efforts are up on the Magic Facebook page right now if you want to go and have a look at those. All right, let's kick it off. I don't know if this is a big story, but I've noticed a few people covering it. Apple, they've released a new iPhone.
Yeah, it is an interesting story because at the moment it's probably not the best time to release any new product across the world. But Apple's actually suffering a little bit at the moment. They're actually being hit pretty hard by Samsung. And when you look at the cycle of where phones come out, the worst possible timing right now with COVID-19 is impacting Apple. Their normal major product launches around September each year. So their latest new product came out in September last year. And their production was halted or interrupted in China for a period of time, which means that stock of iPhone to the current model is a bit hard to get hold of. Samsung's latest phone came out in March, so they basically had a huge production run, all these phones ready to go. COVID-19 came along, and it didn't really matter about some sort of interruption to production from a Samsung perspective. So at the moment, they're really stealing back a bit of market share. So even though it's not the great time or a great time to release a new product, Apple have come out with their latest SE or special edition, as some people call it. And Apple don't do it. They don't like to give version numbers to some of their products. They just call every iPad that they bring out the iPad, whereas we talk about them as generations, 6th generation, 7th generation, that type of thing. So this new SE is called the 2nd generation, or SE2. And essentially what they've done with this product is they've taken the old iPhone 8 physical characteristics, so the actual shell of the iPhone 8, they've essentially left it the same, except they've updated the processor to the latest processor, the same processor as in the iPhone 11, and they've given it dual SIM capabilities, and that's basically it. So it's a bit of an update of the internals, not a major update, a bit of an update of the internals, and then left the outside the same, and this is the new SE2. So they didn't have to do much in their production. All the tools were the same. Most of the production could remain the same, and now we've got, bang, a new iPhone.
Did I see two versions of it as well, 64 and a 128 gig as well?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I suspect the 64 gig will be the most popular because people that are buying this phone, let's face it, the iPhone 8 was out in 2017, so they're buying essentially a 3-year-old phone. They're probably not the heaviest data users, so I suspect the 64 will be a little bit more popular. There are 3 versions, a 128 and a 256, but in Australia it looks like we're only seeing the 64 and 128 at this stage. And again, 3 colours, black, white and red. What we'll see in Australia, I'm not sure if we'll see the red straight away. That might be something that we'll only see in the US to begin with, but then eventually we'll see 3 colours coming out, I imagine, everywhere.
I think I saw a pre-order online today. If you want the 64 gig version, it's going to cost you about $749, I think it is. So it's still, for something that's effectively a 3-year-old phone, it's still a pretty hefty price tag, I reckon.
And that is a little bit cheaper than the old iPhone 8. So you're right, it's not a bargain basement priced phone. And an iPhone, there is always a premium you're paying for an iPhone, but it is $450 cheaper than the iPhone 11. So that's where the attraction will be, I think, for a lot of people. They'll look at that. Do they need the extra camera or cameras in the iPhone 11? Do they want the full screen and the face scanning in the iPhone 11? If they don't, saving $450 maybe not such a bad idea.
Now, I'm still tossing up because I should have thrown away my lease phone like 3 months ago, and I'm holding onto it to the absolute death. Because I've been a Samsung user now for the last, I have to be Geez, since there was an F450. Do you remember that one, Matt? The Samsung F450?
I don't remember the F450. That must be going back, prehistoric man?
2008. Yeah. It was probably the first. Well, it probably was one of the first smartphones because it had internet capabilities on it. You couldn't get any bloody pages on it. It was so damn slow, but it looked good at the time. It was a pretty flash phone.
Yeah, that's when you would have been trying to download on 3G or some of the older technologies where we thought they were fantastic in their speed, but obviously nothing like 4G.
No, nothing like the 4G, but look, it's a tough, technology just moves at such a race. I'll end up getting something. I'll just turn around and go, yeah, just give me a cheaper Samsung you've got. I'm good there. It's kind of weird that everything else I own is Apple orientated, but my phone is Android. It just baffles me. Every time I go to get an iPhone, I go, no, I'll just have the Android. I don't know why that happened.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said for the Samsungs, and probably blue tick is one of those things. In regional areas, everyone focuses on blue tick, which is that slightly better reception rating that they're given. And just about all the latest range of Samsung, apart from the Fold, are all blue tick, whereas in the iPhone range, the iPhone 8 was blue tick. The SE2, even though it's the same chassis, has not been given a blue tick rating, and all the iPhone 11 range are not blue tick. So all of the current range of iPhones, none of those are blue tick.
Wow, there you go. That's interesting. Something to note there if you're going looking for a phone. All right, this is interesting. The ACCC, they're getting taken up a fight for the farmers. What's the details there? Yeah,
it is interesting, and this is something where the ACCC, obviously in Australia, is taking up the fight for farmers in Australia, but it's actually a worldwide movement, and it's the right to repair. And farms have got some tractors now that, I can remember when I was a kid driving tractors for friends out on their properties, and they were pretty basic bits of machinery, dusty and greasy and oily and hot and, incredible noise. Now they're a very sophisticated piece of machinery, and if you've got something that goes wrong with your tractor, just some minor component, might be some part of the technology, you might have an $800,000 bucket of bolts sitting there not able to be used because the manufacturer says that you must have an authorised repairer fix the problem.
Yeah.
If you have someone else come along and touch that might render the entire warranty on that $800,000 piece of equipment completely null and void. Now, the ACCC is looking at that, and there are 5 major manufacturers they're looking at that do bring tractors into Australia, and John Deere is obviously the biggest of those, and they're looking at the rules in Australia and what people can do, and they're actually saying that they're looking at this. They haven't made a decision yet, but they're looking at what people are doing in terms of those manufacturers, and should these farmers be allowed to either repair themselves or bring in another repairer, not an authorised official repairer for their company, but bring in another repairer. It's the same situation we're seeing in some places overseas in the same sort of environment, that farming environment, and it applies to a whole range of technologies. It might apply to your phone, your car, any technology where the manufacturer says the only people that can touch this are the people that we authorise, and other people are saying, well, it shouldn't be that way. So stay tuned for this. We're seeing some more information will come out on this in maybe June or July in terms of some basic, framework around this. But I think it's interesting to see what will happen across the world with this whole right to repair.
Well, it's already happened with the car industry, mate. You don't have to take your car to the dealers to get repaired anymore to keep your warranty. You can take it wherever you like. So I think if they are going to move, they're going to move in a very similar direction. And I think that'll be a good thing for farmers because, all type of competition is a very healthy thing. Yeah,
that's right. And it's not just about competition around this environment, I suppose, from a dollar perspective. It's also about keeping that machinery running. And if you're sitting out there and your crop's ready to strip and you want to get out there on the paddock now and do that, and there's something wrong with your tractor and the authorised repairer is busy and they're 2 weeks away, well, then you might lose a great crop. Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah, I know that. Even I know that, and I'm a city boy. So, yeah, totally get it. All right, this is big news that Facebook and Google, they're going to face some mandatory new code of conduct for some local playing field. Apparently, they're going to have to start paying for some news content, which I think is a very positive thing.
It is, and it's interesting to see the ACCC mentioned again here. Now, the original concept was that there was a voluntary code of conduct that the federal government was asking social media sites like Facebook and Google to enter into that voluntary code of conduct with news outlets. Now, from a business perspective, if you say to someone, this is voluntary, it's going to cost you some money to do it, and we're going to rely on you just to going and doing that voluntarily, then you didn't have to be a genius to work out that those particular industries were going to say, well, we don't have to do it, so we won't worry about doing it. So now the federal government's woken up to that, and they've said that they're going to make it mandatory. There's still some work to be done. The ACCC has gotten involved on the request of the federal government to basically look at what would be fair and reasonable. We want good qualified journalists, we want good news, we want reliable news, but we also want it disseminated through things like Facebook and Google, because people are relying on that for their news. We want the best of both worlds, and I think we can have that. Unfortunately for Google and Facebook and the like, it's going to cost them some money. But on the upside, the news organisations that are producing the news are going to actually get some payment for the work that they're doing. So I think it'll be a good outcome. How Facebook and Google respond, that'll be the next thing to see.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, Matt, because I've worked at radio stations, and we do it here. We share news from Facebook because we understand that people, that's their number one place they get their news from now, social media.
Yeah.
And you got to be onto it. But I think the reason that this has been let to happen is because a lot of media organisations have placed a lot of importance on Facebook, and Facebook has now taken that, and their algorithms have a lot to kind of be accountable for, because it's the algorithms that are the ones that let you see the content.
Yeah, that's right.
It's no longer, whoever's on your list or whoever you like, it's the algorithm, whatever. So I think we need to have an understanding of the Facebook algorithm first before we can actually get to the stage where we demand some payment from Facebook and Google.
Well, the other part that's quite interesting, I find, is that you'll read a news article in what I would call traditional media, and then you see comments from various people on Twitter, for example. And so half the news story is then made up of commentary from people on Twitter. And I actually question it sometimes. I think to myself, which is leading the news here? Is the comment on Twitter what triggered the story in the newspaper, or did the story in an online version of a newspaper trigger some commentary on Twitter and then they've picked up on that? So it's which comes first, I suppose, the chicken or the egg. But if I was Twitter, I'd be saying to a news outlet, well, hold on, you're using my service to generate news for your newspaper. You should be paying me for that.
Yeah, exactly right. Because I go to news.com.au regularly on a daily basis, and you will see 6 or 7 Twitter comments in the actual copy of the story. And you're sitting here going, that's great, you're using it to illustrate, but you're kind of deviating away from the actual point here. You know what I mean? So, is as you said, is it the Twitter comment, or is it the actual copy that is generating the story there? And I think they have to get back to kind of doing that. And that's why we always say, if you are getting your news off social media, go to reputable sites. Go to news.com.au, go to the government websites, go to the ABC, for instance, all those kind of reputable Facebook pages or wherever, and get your news from there, because you are guaranteed to get the real story. If you go on this bloody shovel stuff and the Batuta Advocate, I love the Batuta Advocate. I have some great stuff. Or the Chaser, for instance. Oh my God, Matt, do you ever visit the Chaser?
Well, I have seen some stuff there, but what's worse than that is when someone relies on their friend's Facebook information for their news. So, I saw my mate Billy, and he put up on social media that whatever, and then that must be gospel, rather than saying, let's go to some of those more reputable. So it's not even less reputable news sites, it's just what a friend said, which is no different to when we used to be able to go to the pub and have a bit of gossip around the pub.
Yeah, I know. It's almost going back there. It's almost going back to the Chinese whisper pub thing.
It is.
Esports is really big at the moment. And look, there's another virtual racing season that's been launched as well. I've been loving watching the Supercars one. That's been really fun.
Yeah, it has. And I'm actually surprised with this one how long it's taken them to get there. I love Formula E. It's actually in its 6th season, which I found incredible. But I drive an electric car, so I kind of get used to the sound of an electric car versus, say, an F1 car. And I also get used to that feeling of that instant acceleration. And the drivers often talk about it with Formula E, how cool it is driving a car that's just got all that torque at essentially 0 revolutions per minute. So effectively, that whole Formula E, it seems like it's leading the way, it's groundbreaking. But when it came to some sim racing, you've got things like the V8 supercars you mentioned, F1, NASCAR, IndyCar. They've all got their sim racing season up and going because they can't race in the real world. Formula E has only just joined in. Now, they've got a 9-week sim racing program they've put together. It's changed a little bit from their normal racing, but they've tried to encapsulate the whole Formula E concept. But one of the things I really like about it is they've come up with this concept that they call the race royale. And so they've got all the drivers racing and they all go around and do their racing as per normal. But during the race, it gets to a point where if you're in last place, you're excluded. Next lap, you're in last place, you're excluded. So it knocks people off until it gets to the last 10 in the race, and then those 10 race out the final part of the race. So I thought that was something a little bit different, but it's a pretty crowded environment out there with sim racing, with a whole range of what I would call traditional racing out in the sim environment right now. But again, they're all trying to do something to cope with this whole COVID-19 world.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that supercars have taken the tack that they're actually getting the drivers to race on different circuits in a supercar.
Yeah.
Like they're racing at Monza and all, in Catalonia and stuff. And it's great that the likes of, Formula One people are coming in, like Max Verstappen had a drive a couple of weeks ago and he was bucking around with the V8 guy. So I think it's great. If you think it's boring just sitting there watching a couple of guys playing video games, these guys take it for real. And some of the crashes that are involved in this virtual racing stuff is just mind-blowing. You sit there and you laugh at it. It is just great entertainment to watch.
And there's a lot of the trash talking that we normally recognise as comes part and parcel of, say, F1. There's a lot of that trash talking going on in the sim racing as well. And I saw a bit with Verstappen. I think it was Shane Van Gisbergen that was having a bit of a go at him. And so they were having a bit of a little Barney via social media and then take that onto the track. But the track was obviously only a sim track. But, yeah, look, I think they're trying everything they can to keep people entertained and keep people interested. But I think it's interesting as well. People know these names, they know these people, and then seeing them in a different environment is interesting as well.
Yeah, and the good thing about it is even if you don't have a Fox Sports subscription, some of the teams are actually streaming it on their Facebook pages. That's where I've been watching it. So you can still get involved via the Facebook feeds that they've got going on, and they will actually stream the Fox Sports footage. So it's fantastic to watch. So go and find your favourite V8 supercar team, and no doubt they'll have a stream of the next one. It's fantastic to watch. Just look it up on Facebook. There's loads of great video content going around now.
That's right. And the real question will be is what the normal world will look like when we get back to the normal world, because maybe this will be something they'll incorporate. Maybe they'll have the V8 supercar season, but instead of going over to a track overseas, which is incredibly expensive, they'll have one race throughout the year that's a sim race. I don't know, I'm making it up as I go, but these are the sort of things that people are questioning the status quo with how quickly the world's had to change to cope with this coronavirus.
Next thing you'll be recommending, Matt, that we go back to having Bathurst as the absolute last race grand final in October of supercars, and that would just blow everyone's mind, because heaven forbid we go back to where Bathurst was a special race and not just another bloody round.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly right. Bring it on, I say. I used to love going to Bathurst nowadays.
Oh, I know. Now it's just for points and no one cares in their strategy. Back in the day, people gave it because it meant something. Look, I'm getting on the soapbox now. It's enough.
That's right.
I'll be here forever. Let's talk about the other hot topic at the moment, coronavirus. You can't escape it.
No.
But apparently they're doing some video conferencing weddings in New York, of all places. No way.
Yeah, there's an executive order that was passed only on Saturday that permits virtual marriage ceremonies. So there's a whole bunch of stuff we can now do virtually. We can have dinner parties, we can go to school, go to university, even do some concerts via video conference. But marriage, it used to be that you had to have the celebrant and the witnesses, and obviously the two people getting married, all there together. Yeah. And the law was changed. And what I love about this is we now realise that the laws can be changed quickly. So typically in the past, we've heard governments say, well, we couldn't do that quickly, or we can't change the laws that quickly. But we've learned now that we can. That's right, exactly right. We can change laws quickly when we have to. And this is another one of those laws that's been changed quite quickly. So sure, it probably doesn't have the same romantic feel. I assume that you would still have the bride and groom in the one location and have the other people via video conference. Yeah. It might be a bit rough when you've got the bride and groom in different locations as well. But again, these are the things that are happening. It's a different world we're living in.
Do you in Lower Manhattan take Tim in Upper Manhattan, the witnesses in the Bronx Yeah, no, you could see it going. Yeah, no. Well, there is a two-person rule in New York at the moment, so I can see how that could happen.
Yeah, that's right. So at least you
You
can
know,
get the bride and groom as the two people in one,
yeah.
and the witnesses at their locations, the celebrant somewhere else. But it is quite interesting how quickly we've had to cope as humans, as society, to the changed environment that we're working in, and then how quickly governments had to cope with that as well.
The beautiful thing of this, I think, is Matt, is that even if there's those family members that you can hate, that you don't want to invite to your wedding, you can still have them on the Zoom of your wedding and not even know about it and not care, so that yet they could still look at you and go, they're getting married, I hate them so much. And you're in the back of the mind going, it's like, dude, you got to sit through my whole wedding ceremony.
Or better still, you could just send them the wrong code to get into your Zoom wedding and just say it was just some technical glitch. And you're really sorry they missed out on the wedding, but just that damn Zoom, it must have been some technical glitch there.
Oh, yeah, no, you went to the wrong route. You just created a whole new industry right now, Zoom wedding crashes.
That's right.
Can we trademark that before someone else actually steals it and does it?
Quickly.
I want that trademark.
We'll get on to it.
Zoom wedding crashes. We'll get it happening.